If you're an athlete, especially an athlete or even a sports parent, stay with me. Based on few communications and even being in certain places, you've realized one thing. Like personally, I've realized one thing where you realize coaches make recruitment and people are disappointed because the tangibles are what people are always paying attention to, but forget the intangibles. I just came out of a camp and I was sharing with the youth athletes one important thing that many of them were surprised about. They thought many applause or many awards were going to be given to those who were skilled, or maybe the MVP was going to be the one who was making the most points, crossing over, doing a lot of highlights during the camp. But from my perspective, I gave the MVP to one kid who was actually not so. Let's say everybody would look at him and say, okay, fine, this kid is not so good. But there were certain intangibles that I saw personally. For example, not complaining. Anytime the coach gave something to do, he was never complaining. Anytime the coach says something, he was the first to do it, going the hardest among even people who had the talent. Anytime someone was down as a teammate, he was actually giving a high five, being the first to help the person up. And they were quite surprised. But that is the kind of generation we find ourselves in, because we always focus on the tangibles, forgetting the intangibles. You always hear the statement that character, or maybe sports reviews character, or basketball reviews character. But you ask yourself, wow. One of them came up to me and I just pointed something very important to him. He thought that, okay, everything had to be around just making some highlights, reels, and stuff like that during the camp. But I pointed something very important to him, that based on what you do here, I can actually see who you are in the house. Well, he decided to object it, and I pointed out something to him which he was surprised. Like, how did you know that? I was like, hey, if we look at it carefully, looking at what you do here, this is what you do in the house. I pointed out to him, maybe in your room is not tidied up if we should go now. And he was like, how did I know? I was like, yes, because if you look at how an athlete puts their bag down during practice, leave their shoes, leave the bottles and everything around, the towels just anywhere, just scattered around, it can tell you how they behave in the house. So when they say sports reviews character, that is what it means. So if you're a youth athlete out there, remember, tangibles are always important, but the intangibles, which is your character and your attitude, is always going to give you an altitude, because they always say your attitude determines your altitude. As you prepare for the next season and the preseason, always remember your attitude is what will determine your altitude. Thanks for watching.